I'm not talking about an overheard whisper in a darkened hallway or a hushed conversation you accidentally eavesdropped on. No, this was different. This was something impossible, something that shouldn't exist yet. Something from the future. I did. And now I don't think I have much time left. It started 2 nights ago. I was up late, too late, mindlessly flipping through stations on my old radio. The kind with a stiff tuning dial and a scratched up casing, the kind you don't really see anymore. I'd found it at a garage sale months back, drawn to its nostalgic charm, and ever since, it had become my companion during long, restless nights. I'm one of those people who need background noise while working static-filled music, late-night talk shows, even those strange, distant signals that flicker in and out of dead frequencies. But that night, something different came through. At first, it was barely a whisper beneath the crackle of empty airwaves, a thin, ghostly hum fighting to be heard. I almost ignored it, almost turned the dial again. But then a voice came. This is an emergency alert for all residents. This is not a test. I froze. The voice wasn't like the usual robotic warnings I'd heard before. It was off, slower, almost hesitant, like it was being forced out against some invisible resistance. A deep, mechanical distortion coated every word, stretching them out unnaturally. Please listen carefully. This broadcast is coming from the future. A nervous chuckle slipped from my lips. A joke. Had to be. Some underground station having fun with late-night listeners. Maybe a creepy past-inspired prank trying to get under people's skin. But then the voice came again. If you are hearing this, you have less than 24 hours. They are already here. They are watching. A shiver ran down my spine. And then a sudden burst of static, deafening, swallowing everything, the radio hissing like a living thing before cutting off entirely. I just sat there, staring at the radio. My fingers clenched tight around the armrest of my chair, the tremble in my hands betraying the fear I didn't want to acknowledge. It had to be fake. Some weird experimental transmission. A trick, a hoax, something, anything. But no matter how much I tried to convince myself, the unease crawled beneath my skin, settling deep into my bones. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. 12:03 a.m. A perfectly ordinary moment in a perfectly ordinary night. And yet, nothing felt ordinary anymore. With a shaky breath, I switched the radio off, buried myself under my blankets, and squeezed my eyes shut. I forced my mind to push it away, to label it as nothing more than late-night paranoia. I was wrong. I didn't want to hear anything else. I turned everything off and headed to my room. I lay in bed. My eyelids were heavy, my body sinking into the mattress, exhaustion pulling at me like unseen hands. The strange radio broadcast from earlier still lingered in my mind, but I had almost convinced myself it was nothing, just a hoax, a trick of my overtired brain. I was just about to sleep. And then, at exactly 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A sharp, urgent vibration against my nightstand. My stomach twisted as I reached for it, dread pooling in my chest like ice-cold water. An emergency alert. But something was wrong. There was no text, no explanation, just a pulsing red notification swallowing the screen, beating like a heart. And then I saw the radio, sitting on the table near my bed. I didn't put it there. I knew I hadn't put it there, but it was there. And before I could even process what I was looking at, before I could breathe or think or react, it turned on. By itself. The dial didn't move. No one touched it. But the second the static cleared, the voice came through again. Clearer this time. Stronger. You ignored the first warning. A cold sensation slid down my spine, like icy fingers pressing into my skin. Do not acknowledge them. Do not answer if they knock. Do not let them in. A loud, ear-piercing screech of static ripped through the air, rattling the speakers, then silence. The room felt unbearably still. And then knock. 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 A sharp, deliberate sound. I nearly dropped my phone. The knocking had come from my front door. I live alone. I wasn't expecting anyone. No one should be here. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Knock. 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 Again. It was slow. Even. The kind of knocking that didn't ask for permission but announced its presence. I forced my legs to move, each step feeling heavier than the last. My breath felt too loud in the suffocating quiet. I reached the door and pressed my eye against the peephole. Nothing. No one was there. But the knocking continued. I backed away, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. My phone buzzed again. A new message. Do not look outside. My stomach twisted. A sick feeling spread through me like something was crawling beneath my skin. I couldn't resist. I moved toward the window, inching forward like something unseen was pushing against my chest. Slowly, carefully, I pulled the blinds back just enough to peek through. And I saw a man standing. Or at least, I think it was a man. He stood on the sidewalk directly facing my house. Perfectly still. Too still. His posture was unnatural, rigid like a mannequin. His face was turned toward me, but he wasn't looking at me. His head was tilted at an impossible angle, as if something inside his neck had snapped. He wasn't moving, but he was there, watching. My phone buzzed again. They know you see them. A breath caught in my throat. My hands went numb. I stumbled back from the window, yanking the blinds shut so hard they rattled. And then the knocking stopped. But the silence that followed? It was worse. Much, much worse. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I sat in my room, back pressed against the cold wall, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles ached. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath shallow and uneven. I waited for another message, another warning, another sound that would prove I wasn't losing my mind. But nothing came. Hours crawled by, stretching endlessly as the darkness outside deepened. The house was suffocatingly silent, every shadow stretching too far, every sound making me flinch. When the sun finally rose, I let out a shaky breath. The golden light seeped through my window, washing over the room like a safety net, chasing away the night's horrors. And suddenly, it all felt stupid. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe some underground radio stunt designed to freak people out. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, weaving fear into something bigger than it was. I told myself I was fine. I told myself it was over. But then at exactly midnight, the radio switched on. By itself. The static was deafening, crackling like fire, growing louder and louder until it spoke. This is your final warning. My entire body locked up. The voice was different now. Heavier. Darker. They will come inside tonight. You must not run. You must not scream. You must not speak, it said. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened as if something invisible was pressing down on it. My fingers curled around my bed sheets, my body frozen in place. Then, BZZZ. My phone vibrated. I swallowed, hesitating, then slowly lowered my gaze. A message. Do not let them take you. My stomach dropped. The screen flickered. Then it went completely black. At that exact moment, the lights in my house flickered. Once. Twice. Then click. The front door unlocked by itself. A cold sweat broke out along my spine. My mouth went dry. I did not unlock that door, but it had opened. I grabbed the baseball bat leaning against my closet, clutching it so tightly my fingers ached. I didn't know if it would do anything, but I needed something. Anything. I backed into the farthest corner of my room, my entire body tense, ears straining for any sound. Then I heard them. Footsteps. Slow. Dragging. They weren't heavy, but they weren't light either. They sounded wrong. Like something that wasn't entirely sure how to move properly. I clenched my jaw, biting down on the urge to scream. Then I heard breathing. Too slow. Too deep. Like someone trying to imitate what a human should sound like. Creak. Then a slow, agonizing creak echoed through the hallway. The floorboards groaned beneath them as they moved through the house. They were looking for me. My phone buzzed again. One last message. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see what it said. But I did. Do not blink. It said. I stiffened. Then a shadow. Right outside my bedroom door. I could see it, a sliver of darkness beneath the gap. It didn't move. It didn't shift. It just stood there, waiting. I could hear my own heartbeat hammering in my skull, blood rushing through my ears so loudly it felt like a roar. And then it moved. Towards me. Every cell in my body screamed for me to run, but I couldn't. My muscles refused to obey. And the warning. I couldn't ignore it. Do not blink. So I didn't. My eyes locked on the shadow, burning from the strain. Tears welled up, spilling down my cheeks, but I did not blink. I couldn't. And then the lights flickered. The radio let out a final burst of static. And just like that, they were gone. The shadow disappeared. The air went still. The house was empty. I don't know what would have happened if I had blinked. But I never want to find out. I don't know what happened that night. I don't know what they were. But I know one thing. I am still here. But something has changed. The radio? It doesn't work anymore. Every station is just dead air. My phone? It doesn't receive emergency alerts anymore. But last night I looked outside. He was there, standing across the street. The same stiff posture, the same tilted head, waiting, watching. I don't think this is over, and I don't think I have much time left.